Today, we're starting to unravel the perplexing question. Why is NewJeans so hated? We'll kick off with the first, and perhaps most absurd accusation, that NewJeans lacks talent. Is this the truth, or just a smokescreen designed to hide something much larger? The first, and perhaps most baffling, sign that the NewJeans hate is little more than a flimsy smokescreen, a meticulously crafted illusion designed to obscure deeper insecurities, is the relentless, almost pathological obsession with their alleged lack of talent. Oh, the cries echo across the internet, a cacophony of digital indignation. They can't sing live. Their dancing is too simple. Where are the high notes, the powerful belts, the dizzying choreographies? It's a chorus sung by those seemingly desperate to fit NewJeans into a rigid, predefined box, a template for K-pop idols forged in the fires of a bygone era. And when NewJeans, bless their audacious souls, refuse to be jammed into that antiquated box, when they audaciously choose to breathe fresh air into a suffocating genre, well, that's when the talentless epithet gets hurled like a particularly noxious digital brick. Let's dissect this, shall we? What exactly is the talent they're supposedly missing? This elusive quality that would magically transmute their success into deserved success. Is it the talent to sound exactly like every other group, to perfectly replicate a performance that's been practiced into sterile, predictable perfection? Because if conformity is the ultimate virtue, then perhaps NewJeans isn't talented enough to be boring. Their unique strength lies not in conforming to a checklist of vocal acrobatics or hyper-complex dance moves, but in an authentic, almost disarmingly natural delivery. Their vocal style, often described as airy or conversational, isn't a flaw. It's a deliberate artistic choice. It creates an intimacy, a sense of quiet confidence that draws you in, rather than assaulting your ears with a forced performative display. It's the profound difference between a heartfelt whispered confession and a shouted declaration. Both demand skill, but one often resonates far deeper. Consider their live performances, the very crucible where this lack of talent is supposedly exposed. Critics clamor for explosive, high-energy routines, for sweat-drenched stages, for vocal cords pushed to their absolute breaking point. Yet NewJeans offers something else entirely: effortless charm and innate musicality. Their movements are fluid, organic, and perfectly synced with their laid-back, R&B-infused soundscapes. This isn't simple. On the contrary, it's incredibly difficult to execute with such consistent grace and precision. It requires an acute understanding of rhythm, impeccable body control, and a nuanced stage presence that many more technically proficient groups often ironically lack. They don't need to perform gravity-defying stunts to command attention. Their magnetic aura and the sheer vibe they radiate are more than enough. The accusation that they can't sing live often stems from a fundamental misunderstanding, or perhaps a deliberate misrepresentation of what live truly means in the K-pop landscape today. In an industry increasingly reliant on sophisticated backing tracks, heavy auto-tune, and vocal doubling, NewJeans' perceived rawness, their occasional breathiness, or their deliberate choice not to belt every single note might actually signify something far more authentic. It suggests they are, in fact, more live than many of their contemporaries. They are judged against an artificial standard that few can truly meet without significant technical assistance. This isn't a flaw in them. It's a flaw in the outdated, unrealistic expectations of their critics. And Minji, the visionary behind it all, clearly understood this. Her artistic philosophy has always been about breaking molds, about exploring new visual and sonic territories. NewJeans' so-called lack of talent is, in reality, a radical redefinition of talent itself within the K-pop landscape. It's the talent of authenticity, the courage to be understated in an industry that constantly screams for attention, the ability to create a genuine connection without resorting to tired cliches. The hate isn't truly about their performance. It's about the deep discomfort of those who can't comprehend a paradigm shift, or perhaps Those who simply feel threatened by something so genuinely fresh, so effortlessly captivating, and so undeniably successful that didn't play by their old established rules. It's easier to label this groundbreaking brilliance as lack of talent than to admit your own artistic myopia. So, talentless, huh? Maybe that's just a way to trick you into believing uniqueness is a flaw. But this story of manufactured hate has many more layers. Don't miss our next video, where we'll dig into the second reason, NewJeans' problematic concept, and the uncomfortable truth behind those accusations. Welcome back to our series on why NewJeans is hated. In our last video, we exposed the absurd talentless charade. Today, we're stepping into even more sensitive territory, the accusations surrounding NewJeans' concept. From Cookie to their Y2K style, did these girls really cross a line? Or is someone just viewing innocence through a truly twisted lens? The second sign, a particularly glaring one that screams of biased judgment rather than legitimate critique, revolves around the incessant, often salacious, accusations leveled against NewJeans' problematic concept. Too young. They cry. Cookie. Is sexual. They're Lolita coded. This is inappropriate for minors. The indignation, real or feigned, floods social media, transforming a simple, catchy pop song and a fresh aesthetic into a battleground for moral panic. But peel back the layers of manufactured outrage, and you'll find that the true problem isn't with NewJeans or their creative direction. It's with the warped lenses through which some choose to view innocence, and the insidious habit of projecting adult anxieties onto youthful expression. Let's dissect the infamous Cookie controversy, a linguistic tempest in a teapot that became a rallying cry for the easily scandalized. The argument hinges on the fact that Cookie can have a sexual connotation in some English slang. And indeed, it can. But to immediately leap from that isolated linguistic possibility to a full-blown accusation of intentional sexualization, especially given the Korean context of the song's writers and the group's overall wholesome image, is not merely a stretch. It's an acrobatic feat of logical fallacy. It requires a willful blindness to the primary, innocent meaning of the word, a sweet treat, a baked good, something universally associated with childhood and simple pleasures. Are we to assume that every instance of the word cookie in popular culture, from children's shows to baking recipes, now carries a hidden, illicit subtext? This isn't critical analysis. It's an act of deliberate perversion, where the accuser is far more revealing of their own fixations than of the accused's intentions. The perversion, dear reader, isn't in the cookie. It's in the eye, or rather, the mind of the beholder, desperately searching for sin where none exists. Beyond a single word, the broader concept debate zeroes in on NewJeans' overall aesthetic. Their natural styling, their Y2K-inspired fashion, their emphasis on youthful, fresh vibes.
오늘 되게 약간 Y2K 스타일이다. 뉴진스 같아. 그냥 멤버 바로 지금.
Y2K 카메라인가요? 그 뉴진스 카메라인가요? 뉴진스 카메라?
뉴진스가 딱 Y2K 스타일링으로 하자.
Y2K 컨셉으로 데뷔한 팀이죠. 울트라 슈퍼 킹왕짱 루키 뉴진스.
They look too young is a common refrain. Well, they are young, and their concept deliberately leans into that genuine youthfulness, portraying it with a sense of carefree nostalgia and authentic charm, rather than the forced maturity or overt sexiness often seen in other girl groups, which ironically, often draws far less moral outrage. Their fashion choices, often simple, comfortable, and reminiscent of early 2000s teen trends, are designed to evoke a sense of everyday reality, a stark contrast to the often elaborate, revealing, or hyper-glamorous costumes prevalent in K-pop. This is a deliberate artistic choice to portray idols as relatable, accessible young women, not unattainable fantasies. And for some reason, that relatability, that authenticity, seems to deeply unsettle a segment of the audience. The Lolita coded accusations are perhaps the most insidious, a vicious slur designed to delegitimize Minhee Jin's entire artistic vision. This accusation drags in her past work, attempting to paint a pattern where none truly exists or where her artistic exploration of youthfulness is deliberately conflated with something predatory. Minhee Jin has consistently shown a profound understanding and appreciation for the aesthetics of youth, often capturing its vulnerability, its awkwardness, and its raw beauty. This is a far cry from sexualization. Her approach is about authenticity, portraying young women as they are, with all their natural charm and innocence, rather than forcing them into roles that are either hypersexualized or infantilized, in a way that strips them of agency. The problem arises when this genuine portrayal is filtered through the jaded, often prejudiced, lens of an audience actively seeking to find fault, actively projecting their own biases onto the artist. The very act of depicting youth, pure and unadulterated, seems to trigger a defensive, even aggressive response from those who are perhaps uncomfortable with genuine innocence, or those who are simply eager to find a scandal where there is only art. This outrage over the concept is, ultimately, a profound misdirection. It's a convenient stick with which to beat NewJeans and Minhee Jin, distracting from the real reasons for discomfort. It's easier to claim moral superiority by pointing fingers at an imagined problematic concept than to confront the underlying truth. That NewJeans success, built on a foundation of genuine artistry and a refusal to conform, is a threat to the established order. This genuine, unforced appeal challenges the status quo, disrupting the predictable churn of K-pop concepts and the very definition of what an idol group should be. When something genuinely fresh emerges, something that doesn't fit neatly into existing boxes, it can provoke anxiety, even anger, among those who prefer the comfortable predictability of the familiar. The hate then becomes a desperate, almost pathetic attempt to control the narrative, to discredit innovation by cloaking it in the guise of moral outrage. They're not concerned about the girl's well-being. They're concerned about their own discomfort with change. And that, in itself, is the real problem here. It's wild how a simple cookie can stir up so much controversy, isn't it? But trust me, these hate narratives are just the appetizer. The real story goes much deeper, right into the most powerful corridors. Join us in the next video, where we'll pull back the curtain on the industry-shaking conflict between Minhee Jin and HYBE, and the true nature of that battle. Welcome to the third video in our series on the real reasons behind the hate for NewJeans. After dissecting the baseless claims of no talent and problematic concepts, today we're confronting the eye of the storm, the public clash between Minhee Jin and the HYBE Corporation. Is this truly a tale of a crazy leader, an ungrateful artist, or a valiant fight for artistic vision? The third, and perhaps most revealing, sign that the vitriol aimed at NewJeans is profoundly misplaced, a testament to an industry's resistance to change and a public susceptibility to manufactured outrage, lies in the dramatic Messi and public conflict with HYBE. The accusations hurled were deafening. NewJeans is ungrateful. Minhee Jin is greedy, a madwoman, sabotaging her own creation. The narrative spun by certain factions painted a clear picture: a benevolent parent company, HYBE, being betrayed by a rogue CEO and her naive artists. But peel back the layers of corporate spin and the shrill cries of ungrateful idol, and you'll find a far more complex and frankly heartbreaking story of an artist fighting for her vision, and young women standing by the only person who truly championed their unique identity. Let's not forget Minhee Jin's track record, a testament to her genius long before NewJeans. This isn't some novice executive. She's a visionary, a creative director who literally redefined K-pop aesthetics for a generation. From her groundbreaking work at SM Entertainment with groups like FX and Red Velvet, where she pioneered avant-garde concepts and visual narratives that reshaped the industry, to her audacious leap to create a door under HYBE. She has consistently proven herself to be an artist first, a businesswoman second. Her move to HYBE was ostensibly To be given the freedom to build something truly new, unburdened by corporate constraints. The promise was creative autonomy, the chance to craft a group from the ground up, imbued with her distinct artistic philosophy. So, when the accusations of greed and disloyalty started flying, one must ask, what was she truly fighting for? It wasn't simply about money. It was about creative control and the protection of her artistic creation. Imagine an architect building a masterpiece, pouring her soul into every design, every material choice, only for the developer to suddenly demand she add extra floors, change the facade, and lease out portions for unrelated businesses. MHDHH saw NewJeans as her artistic children, painstakingly nurtured and brought to life. When she perceived attempts to dilute their unique identity, to perhaps push them into a more conventional K-pop mold, or even to marginalize her role in their future, she reacted as any passionate artist would, with fierce, unyielding protectiveness. Her outbursts, her seemingly erratic behavior in the public eye, were not the signs of madness, but the desperate, raw expressions of a creator pushed to the brink, fighting against a corporate machine that she felt was threatening to dismantle her life's work. And what about NewJeans themselves? The narrative painted them as passive recipients, perhaps even brainwashed victims, manipulated by their crazy CEO. This is perhaps the most insulting aspect of the criticism. To imply that these young women, who have dedicated their lives to their craft, lack the agency or intelligence to form their own opinions is utterly condescending. Their steadfast loyalty to MHDHH was not a sign of naivety. It was a profound act of solidarity and gratitude. They stood by the woman who saw their potential, who created a unique space for them to thrive, and who shielded them from the very pressures that often crush young idols. They experienced firsthand the creative environment she fostered, the vision she brought to life. When the corporate conflict erupted, they didn't abandon her. They chose to side with the person who understood them, who fought for their artistic integrity, even if it meant risking their own burgeoning careers. This takes immense courage, a maturity far beyond their years, and a testament to the genuine bond they share with their creative director. To call them ungrateful for standing up for what they believe is right, for defending the architect of their unique success, is to misunderstand the very essence of loyalty and artistic partnership. The public spectacle of this conflict, particularly MHDH's emotional press conference, was not a calculated PR move. It was the raw, unfiltered breakdown of someone under immense pressure, fighting for her professional life and the future of her artists. In an industry where corporate disputes are usually handled behind closed doors with sterile press releases, her unvarnished honesty, though chaotic, was a shocking and refreshing anomaly. It revealed the human cost of corporate power struggles, the vulnerabilities of even the most formidable figures. The hate she received for this display wasn't about her being crazy. It was about the discomfort of seeing the curtain pulled back, exposing the often brutal realities of the entertainment business that people prefer to ignore. It's easier to condemn the unprofessional outburst than to scrutinize the systemic issues that might have led to it. Ultimately, the conflict with HYBE isn't a story of NewJeans and MHDH's downfall. It's a story of artistic defiance against corporate control, a battle for creative freedom in an industry notorious for stifling it. The hate they garnered during this period wasn't truly about their alleged transgressions. It was about the discomfort of witnessing a direct challenge to the established power dynamics, a powerful female leader refusing to be silenced, and young artists bravely standing by their mentor. It revealed a deeply ingrained preference for idols who are seen, not heard, and executives who comply, not create waves. This backlash, therefore, serves as less of a condemnation of NewJeans and MHDHH, and more of an indictment of the rigid, often hypocritical expectations placed upon artists and their creators in the K-pop machine. So, what seemed like a simple dispute actually revealed so much more about power and control in this industry. But the truth is, even after that storm, the hate persisted. So, what else is truly fueling it? Stick around for our next video. where we'll explore why NewJeans' undeniable success became yet another reason for them to be hated. Welcome to part 4 of our deep dive. If you thought success would silence the critics, you were wrong. Today, we're dissecting a startling paradox. The more NewJeans succeeds, the more intensely they seem to be hated. Is this just pure envy? Or did their rise truly threaten an outdated order within the K-pop world? The fourth, and perhaps most insidious, sign that the NewJeans hate is rooted in something far more cynical than genuine criticism lies in the sheer volume and ferocity of the attacks that followed any perceived misstep, or, more accurately, any demonstration of their unique characteristics and overwhelming success. It's the kind of intense scrutiny reserved not for those who fail, but for those who dare to succeed differently, who brazenly threaten the comfort of the familiar. This phenomenon suggests a deeper truth. The hate is often a reactive, almost tribal, response from those clinging desperately to old paradigms, or those simply unable to tolerate anything that challenges their preconceived notions of K-pop, beauty, or even female success. Consider their unconventional rise. From the moment NewJeans debut with their natural, girl next door aesthetic, a stark departure from the heavily styled, often high-concept visuals dominating the industry, they were met with an immediate, almost instinctive backlash. They're too plain. They look like regular high schoolers. Where's the glitter? The elaborate sets? The fierce costumes? This wasn't genuine critique of artistry. It was a visceral rejection of authenticity, a demand for the fabricated perfection that K-pop had long promised. The hate wasn't about their performance. It was about their very existence, shattering the illusion that idols must be larger than life, untouchable beings. NewJeans offered relatability, and for some, that was an unforgivable sin. Stripping away the fantasy they'd invested so heavily in, this aversion to their unique style also bled into the ridiculous accusations of plagiarism. Suddenly, every long-haired girl, every casual outfit, every retro aesthetic was deemed a ripoff of some obscure group from the past. The fervor was absurd. It completely ignored the cyclical nature of fashion and music, the pervasive influence of trends, and the undeniable fact that Minji herself was a pioneer of many of these aesthetics in K-pop. It wasn't about genuine intellectual property theft. It was a desperate, almost comical, attempt to invalidate NewJeans' originality by claiming they had simply copied someone else. If you can't genuinely criticize their output, discredit their origins. This tactic reveals the true agenda, not to assess quality, but to undermine legitimacy. Furthermore, the hate escalates disproportionately whenever NewJeans achieves a new milestone or breaks another record. A #1 hit? It's all media play. They bought it. A major brand endorsement? They're just trendy. They'll fade. Awards? It's rigged. This isn't critical analysis. It's the bitter, predictable refrain of those who refuse to acknowledge success that doesn't fit their narrow definition of deserving. It's the byproduct of a zero-sum mentality where another's triumph must, by definition, diminish their preferred group's achievements. This knee-jerk dismissal of their genuine accomplishments reveals an underlying resentment of their meteoric rise, especially given their unconventional approach. The hate isn't about their performance. It's about their uncomfortable, undeniable success. It's about the sheer audacity of not following the script, yet still winning the game. When a group dares to break every rule and still reaches the top, it can ignite unimaginable fury. But trust me, there's an even darker reason, an insidious undercurrent that few dared to confront. Don't miss the final video in this series, where we'll expose an uncomfortable truth: the role of sexism quietly manipulating this very hate. Welcome to the final and perhaps most crucial installment of our series on why NewJeans is hated. We've dissected the baseless accusations of talent and concept flaws, navigated the corporate power struggle with HYBE, and even seen how their sheer success somehow ignited public fury. But now, it's time to confront the uncomfortable truth. A subtle, toxic undercurrent often overlooked. The element of sexism. The fifth, and arguably most profound, sign that the NewJeans hate is less about objective critique and more about a deep-seated discomfort with change is its relentless persistence, even in the face of overwhelming success and a clear paradigm shift in the K-pop landscape. This isn't just criticism. It's a desperate, almost pathological resistance to a new reality, a refusal to acknowledge that the rules of the game have fundamentally shifted. This continuous backlash, despite NewJeans' undeniable impact and growing global appeal, reveals a fear of the future, a stubborn adherence to outdated notions of what K-pop should be, and a subtle yet pervasive undercurrent of sexism directed at female leadership and innovation. Consider the sheer tenacity of the negative narratives. Despite topping charts globally, selling millions of albums, securing lucrative brand deals, and consistently delivering critically acclaimed music, the hate persists with an almost supernatural endurance. If the initial criticisms were truly about talent or concept, wouldn't the undeniable evidence of their success and the evolution of their artistry quiet the detractors? Yet, it only seems to fuel a new wave of fabricated grievances. This suggests that the initial critiques were never the real issue. They were merely convenient talking points, a smokescreen for a deeper, more uncomfortable truth. NewJeans represents a shift that many are unwilling or unable to accept. This resistance is often born from a fear of obsolescence. For years, the K-pop industry thrived on a particular formula: intense training, elaborate concepts, synchronized power choreographies, and a distinct boundary between idol and fan. NewJeans, under MHDHH's visionary guidance, disrupted this formula. They introduced a more naturalistic, less overtly performative style, emphasizing the music's vibe and the members' inherent charm. They blurred the lines between idol and everyday girl, creating a relatable, almost accessible fantasy for those who had invested heavily, emotionally, financially, creatively, in the old ways. This disruption was a direct threat. If NewJeans could succeed so massively by breaking the rules, what did that say about everyone else who meticulously followed them? The hate then becomes a defensive mechanism, an attempt to delegitimize the new wave, to prove that their comfortable, familiar world is still the only valid one. Furthermore, there's an undeniable undercurrent of sexism in much of the sustained hate, particularly directed at MHDHH. Her strong personality, her unapologetic artistic vision, and her fierce defense of her work are often labeled as crazy, emotional, or difficult. Labels rarely, if ever, applied with such ferocity to male executives or producers in similar situations. A male visionary fighting for creative control might be lauded as a genius or a maverick. A woman doing the same is often branded as irrational or power-hungry. This double standard is glaring. The vitriol she receives, and by extension, the manufactured criticisms lobbed at NewJeans, stem not just from a discomfort with artistic change, but with a powerful, independent woman daring to challenge the male-dominated structures of the industry. Her audacity to speak her mind, to confront perceived injustices publicly, directly challenge the submissive role often expected of women in such high-stakes environments. This, more than any alleged concept issue or talent deficit, ignites a deep-seated anger among those who prefer women to remain in their designated, quieter places. The ongoing NewJeans hate, therefore, serves as a stark reminder of the challenges faced by true innovators. It's the sound of the old guard resisting the inevitable tide of change. It's the discomfort of those whose rigid definitions of talent, beauty, and success are being shattered. And it's the thinly veiled misogyny that often rears its head when a woman-led artistic vision dares to triumph on its own unconventional terms. The persistent nature of this hate isn't a flaw in NewJeans or MHDHH. It's a glaring symptom of an industry in transition and a segment of its audience desperately clinging to the past. But like any form of progress, it marches on, leaving the noise of the detractors to echo in an increasingly empty chamber, while NewJeans continues to ascend, carried by the very authenticity and innovation that others so desperately try to suppress. This persistent hate then isn't about their flaws. It's a glaring symptom of an industry in transition and a segment of its audience desperately clinging to the past. It's the sound of the old guard resisting change, and the discomfort of those whose rigid definitions of talent and power are being shattered. But like any form of progress, it marches on, leaving the noise of the detractors to echo in an increasingly empty chamber, while NewJeans continues to ascend, carried by the very authenticity and innovation that others so desperately try to suppress. Thank you for joining us on this journey of truth.